Just when you thought the bitter conflict between Governor Christie and the teachers union was over, it seems the battle has just been reignited. This time, the feud centers around the Garden State's recent application submitted to the federal government for education funding as part of the Race to the Top program. But in a last-minute change, the governor denounces the deal struck by Education Commissioner Brett Schundler and the NJEA over merit pay and seniority, submitting the application without union support. What could it all mean for the governor, for the union, for the commissioner, and for up to $400 million in federal money? Joining me again for more, Pat Politano, who is president of Strategic Message Management, and Republican blogger and strategist George Ajjan, founder of Ajjan Associates. Your reactions to the rejection of the deal by the governor that was apparently struck by Education Commissioner Brett Schundler with the NJEA.
Brenda, he's kicking butt, and I love it. I can't decide what would make me happier, if Chris Christie continues to make great policy, or if he would resign from the governor's office, team up with David Chase to make a dramatic series based on himself as governor, and it would be better than The Sopranos.
That's amazing.
I think we have to try to figure out how to get $400 million in aid for New Jersey school children. And what seems most unusual about it, Brenda, is the actual mechanics of it.
And this is the first time this has happened, right?
This is very rare for a governor to so openly and publicly be critical of one of his own commissioners. It makes it very difficult to figure out how to cooperate and negotiate if the education commissioner, the chief representative of the governor on that issue, doesn't have the authority to speak. How do you make an agreement? How do Democrats make an agreement? How does the teachers union? It's not a matter of kicking butt. It's a matter of trying to figure out how to get things done, and that's what's confounding it at a very large level.
Now, this is a public scolding. I mean, really, how
it seems to be a bit of a good cop, bad cop situation that went a bit amiss. Now, those that know Brett Schundler know he's extremely intelligent when it comes to policy matters, and quite frankly, he's not necessarily used to playing number two. So it's not hard for me to imagine that Brett took, knowing that he's the commissioner, went and considered that he had the authority, and obviously there was something unclear in the communications between the commissioner and the governor. So in a certain sense, it doesn't look good for them publicly, but I think Christie's clear on what he wants. He came into this position saying the previous governor patched up this budget with gimmick after gimmick. And Christie, we know, has declared all-out war on the teachers union. There's no hiding that. I think he's saying, if we're going to get this money, which basically pushes off the budget fixes that I've been trying to implement without any gimmicks, if we're going to do that at all, it's definitely going to be on my terms. So,
but what about their relationship?
But that's the problem here, is that if there are negotiations in good faith and the governor turns around and so publicly, as George is saying, has this issue with the teachers union, it makes it appear as if it's personal, as opposed to what the people want is some method of the two sides working together, that an agreement that was reached apparently in good faith by both sides is just out of the clear blue, publicly, in the press, rejected by the governor, and then how do we move on?
Is it a break in ranks in the administration, do you think?
No, I wouldn't say it's a break in ranks. I think it's a communication gap between two members of the administration, between the executive and one of his staff. I mean, that's clear. But look, the important thing is, I disagree with...
But it's really not just a member of the staff, is it? I mean, this is the education...
No, it is a committee.
So it's a cabinet officer, one of the governor's hand-picked cabinet.
No doubt about that, and they're going to have to deal with the fallout of that. But again, the focus is on the policy. Okay, I disagree with what Pat said, that people want to see the government make compromises. I mean, people are loving the fact that this governor says, this is what I believe, this is what I was elected to do, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
But are they really loving the fact that $400 million for the kids is at stake? What about that part of it?
Well, again, what the governor is saying is having a short-term fix that essentially amounts to a gimmick in the budget, a federal infusion of funds, okay, doesn't fix the problem that we have in New Jersey with our budget. And as he said, that was televised on your network and other networks at a town hall meeting, these gimmicks are simply not going to work. And I don't have the ability as the governor of New Jersey to just print money. It doesn't come out of thin air.
$400 million in federal aid isn't a gimmick. It could help a great deal. And the governor has to, it seems, remember that last year's campaign is over. It's not all politics. It's now governing. And while the voters of New Jersey elected a Republican governor, at the same time they elected an overwhelmingly Democratic state assembly because they were asking both sides to try to address some of these vexing problems, and continuing to posture or to be the tough guy isn't remedying the problems. It might get good press, but it's not fixing the problem. At stake is that $400 million that New Jersey school children need. And is the governor going to do his best to try to get that?
He is doing his best. He's not governing based on polls or what's going to give him a 5% bounce in his approval rating this week or this month or even this year. He's saying, I've been elected for 4 years, this is what I'm out to accomplish, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for him for that.
Receiving the aid would be helpful to have an agreement from the teachers union. That's part of the conditions of sort of the application, to have their support. And again, to have made an arrangement and to reach agreement with the Christie administration, which would be the NJEA's position, which is not an unreasonable one. What do they do now? They've reached agreement.
But let's say we get the aid, then what about next year?
Next year is next year. Right now, we're all, I think George's trying to get through 1 year at a time. You know, we're all trying to get through 1 year at a time.
Now, the grants for the race to the top don't really come through until September. So if New Jersey wins the grant, could that solidify the governor's position?
He has to change his position. Before, the position or the view of the governor has to change and will be judged much sooner than that. The state budget has to be adopted by Constitution before the end of this month. There has to be one in place, or the state can't spend money. He now has to go and negotiate with the Democratic legislature. They're going to be looking at this negotiations with the teachers union and looking at the governor skeptically and wanting to have all I's dotted, T's crossed on an agreement, or we're going to have even more serious problems.